What's up, family? It's your boy Jaheim President with I'm your host, Legacy Builders Podcast, and I am so excited to be here with you tonight. Um, we had some technical difficulties. There it is. But I'm excited to be with you tonight as we or today or whenever you're watching this, as we continue these great conversations and as we continue these great um just greatness. But first, I need you to do, I need you to share. There's power in your share. There is power beyond your share. So share with your family, your cousins, whoever, your coworkers, your loved ones, whatever. But you can subscribe to us at Jaheim President TV. I need you to subscribe to Jaheim President TV. Also follow us, show love to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. And also follow us on Instagram at Legacy Builders Pod. Legacy Builders Pod. All right. First off, I want to thank you all for really showing us love recently. It's this podcast really has been a healing journey. It's really been a necessary journey for me, because this is tied to my purpose. And when you really walk in purpose, when you really walk into what God has ordained for your life and what you need in your life. Everyone has a why. Everyone has something to do in this earth. And when you find what you are meant to do, it becomes more powerful and it becomes more better. I promise you it does. Really does. Just checking. All right, so family first, I say thank you. But let's get into it. Today's conversation, we're going to talk about grief and the power of grief, and how many of us really don't realize that we're still grieving death of a loved ones, and also grieving relationships, grieving friendships, grieving loss, and grieving things that are no longer serving us, and no longer really serving. I really want to do the technical definition of grief, and it said grief is a deep sorrow, especially caused by someone's death, or the other definition is trouble or annoyance. So grief is so weird and so hard to talk about, because grief really is a thing that many of us don't want to handle, many of us don't want to think about. Because when we think about death, or when we think about an end of something, especially death, I know when I talk about death is so final. I think that's why most people are scared of death, is because how final it is. How, when a loved one dies, or sometimes when a relationship really truly die, it feels like we have a part of us that are no longer here with us. And many of us can't deal with the finality of things, because we were so dependent on that person. We were so depending on that relationship. We were so depending on that, whatever it may be, to heal a part of us, or to we don't have to deal with a part of us. And so when the spirit of grief comes on you, it is a kind of a reminder of an area of you have lost, and also an area where you no longer have control. Because can I tell you this, grief will come sometimes to take your power, because especially dealing with the love of a lost one, those who may have died because of sickness, it feels like you have lost your power, because you could not control the situation and the outcome of the situation, and leading also to grief with relationships or friendships or loss of a job. It kind of feel like you lost your power. And I have been in this process and in this season of life ever since July of this year, of dealing with the stuff that I'm still grieving of. May it be persons, or may it be situations that I no longer have control of, and it's no longer serving anything to me. And what grieving does, it keeps you distracted from moving forward. And I know this is a sensitive topic, and I'm not telling you how to grieve, but I'm this point, this conversation is really to tell you what grief is, and how do we deal with grief, and how do we overcome grief, and how do we take the proper steps to grief. Because like I said last week, we there is no such thing as normal, because what may be normal for me is not no longer normal for you. And so that is what is. Grief is a process. Anything you go through in life that alters and changes and has the ability to alter and change your life, it is a process. And many of us, we want the quick fix, and many of us want the quick healing, the quick deliverance, the quick this, the quick that. And can I tell you this? It never works when it happens that fast. Going back to the tortoise and the hare, the hare was so hasty. I mean, the hare should have won by a mile, but the hare was so hasty to win that he really didn't enjoy the process of winning. And the tortoise teaches us how minor steps can lead to something major. And so, getting back to grief, I'll tell you a little bit of my story. My granddaddy unexpectedly, or he just he passed away unexpectedly. Like, it was crazy, and I had to grieve, but I didn't understand grief, because it wasn't when, especially when you're dealing with unexpected stuff. It wasn't. I mean, I literally didn't expect him to be gone. And many of us, we deal with that because of the suddenly of when things in life is changing. So here it is. When I was just getting ready to graduate, 2 months away, I was expecting him to be there. I was just, and what really hurt me is I preached that Sunday. I preached, with my, I preached the fire of the Lord, and then the next day he passed away, and for a long time, it was like the Lord hadn't told, like, I felt I was mad at the Lord because the Lord didn't tell me that. It's not something the Lord had to tell me, but how I was moving in the prophetic, and stuff like that. And so I grieved a long time, and I'm still grieving. This is like a year and a couple months, but I'm better because I had to realize. So he gave, I inherit most of his stuff. And for a while, right where I'm doing this podcast is, I had all his stuff packed up. Packed up in boxes. And I didn't want to accept the fact that there was a new season on the horizon, that this really meant that he was gone. Like, you know what I mean? And can I tell you this? The new season that was on the horizon can sometimes alter your life and change your life for the better. So not only grieving a person, but when you're grieving relationships, when you're grieving friendship, how many of us have, when we were locked in with a person, may it be relationship, may it romantic, or may it be friendship, when we were locked into a job, and so we grew, and it suddenly changed. The person suddenly didn't want you. This person, the relationship got toxic, the friendship got toxic, and you spent so much time with them that you were not grieving more or less the person. You were grieving the times when you were depending on them, or depending on so and so, depending on this and that, to fill a void that you didn't know was there, because they did a great job of filling it. And so once they've been pulled back from your life, is now like you're in a place where, okay, I have to really deal with me. I really have to deal with that new, what maybe seem as lag, when it's now a season of transition. Because how many of us we really can't handle, or how many of us don't really know how to operate in that season called transition, when the divorce occurs, when the termination of the job occurs, when you are being pushed to move to a new city, when you're being pushed to move into a new this and a new that, and now you're grieving something, and you're grieving someone, and you're grieving places that no longer serve you. And so I really want to talk to those people today, and those people who are listening to me later on, that it is okay to transition, because sometimes the transition is necessary to move you to your next. And I really didn't realize that, even with the death of my granddad, I really didn't realize that it was transitioning me to a kind of a closer relationship to God. But it was I really think that was really the transition of movie, that okay, I have to go explore the world. I have to, because I had this mindset that I was gonna stay in Charleston. I was gonna move, go to the school that I went to middle school. I was gonna raise up the rank. And then I realized that I was being called to something greater. I was being called to something better, but I needed a push. And not saying that, and I hate the way the push happened, but that really altered my life. And I really said, okay, Jaheim, there is something worth living that is beyond Charleston, South Carolina. There's something worth living that is beyond going back and being a hometown hero. And with, even with grieving some friendships, I'm really thankful that I survive this, and I'm still navigating, but I survived this season of transition that came from grief. See, grief could be a stepping stone and a moving stone to move you into something better. See, okay, so here it is. So transition, grieving. So I'm in the process of making a change in life, like really, like doing something, walking out on faith. But and really was been. But what's really been holding me back, and I'll be honest with you, it's really been holding back, is I'm going to grieve. I'm gonna be grieving, this transition. I'm gonna be grieve. I know that grief is a part of this transition. I know that grief could be a part of this next stage. So, but I can't let grief hold me. I can't let the process of transition hold me, because can I tell you this? Transition is, there's always going to be a transition when you're moving to the next level, and when you're moving to a next space and place and time. And so we cannot hide from the fact that transition is sometimes the gateway to our promise, the gateway to our destiny. And so I really want to encourage you today and tonight, and whenever you're listening to this, that transition is good. I know it is. Transition is good, and but it's never easy. Transition, there may be, you may be blessed sometimes where it could become easy, but transition is good, but sometimes it's not always easy. And can I tell you this? And I said this, and I'm gonna say this all my life. You don't always want ease. You don't always, I never pray for ease. I never pray for this. I never pray for that. I pray that I can be able to navigate what is ever attached to my next, because next sometimes pushes you out of your comfort zone, and so is grief. And so I really, I was driving today, and I was really just thinking about it, how many of my friendships from high school, who I may no longer be as close to them, but I you know and but I needed that separation. I needed that that they had that separation from them, not because they're a bad person, not because, see, here's it is. We like to include separation and think that, oh, we did something wrong, and oh, no, there is such thing as good separation. Come on, say it with me. There is such thing as good separation. There is such thing as transitioning and managing well to get to where you need to be. And so I was just driving today. I was driving back from Charleston. I was in kind of almost in tears how different my mindset was, how different my attitude towards different people were, because there were a season where I couldn't handle grief. Mm. There was a season where I couldn't handle transition. I couldn't handle loss. I talked about it last week, overcoming depression, that which led to depression because of my mishandlement of grief and of transition. Because some of us were mishandling these two things. And I'm not telling you how to heal. I'm not telling you how to process, but di- but soaking and not trying to do something different will have you in a place where you're no longer able to function, and you're no longer able to move to your next. And someone, can I tell you this, sometimes that's what people, especially relationships, people will leave you just because they know how dependent you were from them. Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody? Have you ever been in a friendship where they say, "Yep, they gonna fall"? I know some people that were expecting me to fall, that were expecting me to no longer be able to function because they suddenly left my life. And what and can I tell you this? That is a trigger point sometimes. I tell people all the time, when I get triggered by certain things, I get triggered by certain things because sometimes when people leave too fast, when I let people in too close and they just suddenly switch, it's like, oh, I start reminiscing. And so I start to get negative and I start to fall into these traps. But then I had to deal with that. I had to deal with grieving. I had to realize what triggered my grieving moments. Ah, that's good. See, you have to realize you have to find what is your triggering points. And sometimes you have to establish that boundary. You have to establish those things that you have to realize that you cannot let no some certain things trigger you anymore. And that's easier said than done, but you have to get away from the environments that are keep triggering you. How can you stay in an environment where you know that is a trigger point? I don't know about you, but I love my peace. I really do. I really do. I love peace. I love having peace. And I think peace is so necessary because many of us are lacking peace. And what peace brings is clarity. Oh, and what clarity brings is better decision making. And when you can make better decisions, then you can afford and you can progress into a better life. And so all that to say, I need you to really look at those triggering moments that bring on grief. And so it may be that I can't look, like for me right now, I cannot, I don't like looking at pictures of my granddaddy right now because I'm not fully healed up from that. So I try to stay away. You know, I'll, if I do, I look and then I scroll up, and even with certain friends and past relationships, I kind of remove myself, and that's no harm to them, and that's no harm to me, but because I just know where I need to be. And so some of us, I need you to really know where you need to be. And sometimes grief could be a distraction to destiny. Yeah, it is. It is. And you're probably like, Jaheim, what? Yeah, grief can be a distraction to destiny. And so you have to be able to look into your inner self. You have to be able to look into your inner person and realize what you need to do to heal. Because healing brings about change. I really want to know if you haven't been listening since we've gotten back from legacy, since we've gotten back from our hiatus. I've really been talking about different steps and different ways you can heal yourself. I talked about rest and recover. I talk about dealing with trauma. I talked about you may be the toxic one. So all of these stuff, grief, managing depression, they are all different steps, and they're all different ways that healing can occur. Because can I tell you this? I don't need you to go unhealed in the next season of your life. I don't need you go grieving in this next season of your life, because you may miscalculate and you may make a decision out of greed and not a decision out of what's going to propel you to your next level. Because can I tell you this? Um, Starting is really hard. Can I tell you this? Starting is really hard. I'm telling you, starting is really hard, but maintaining is even harder. Because starting can be hard, but it brings on an excitement when you start a new job, when you do this, when you do that, when you start a new relationship, whatever. But maintaining that relationship, maintaining that job, maintaining your dream is really hard. And one of the main things that brings out that hardness to maintain is grieving. How many of you have lashed out on people you're dating now because you're still grieving, you're still hurt from what that other person did? I have friends all the time that I say, hey, listen, you can't blame the person you're with now over what happened to you back then. And I hate that. I hate that when people blame me for past relationships, past failed friendships. I hate that because it puts me in a weird place. And you can be honest with yourself. It puts me in a place like, man, I just met you. I just met you. I ain't did nothing to you. And so you start saying that. And so that deals with the place where you haven't healed from and you haven't been delivered from. But I really want to encourage you to look at what you're really make a list of what you're grieving, who you're grieving, and make a list of why you're grieving them. What void did they fill in your life? What void, what kind of emotional state did they put you in? What was in them? What was so special about them? So what was so this and that about them? And then you have to not find a replacement, but you have to find something within. See, it all starts from within, because here it is. It becomes a danger. It really does. It becomes a danger when you are so dependent on some other person to make you feel this and that. It really, and and you're saying like, what, Jaheim? What are you talking about? It becomes a real danger when you are doing this and doing that, and really depending on someone else to bring you this. It really does. Now they can be, and here it is, they can be an aid, but they shouldn't be a main source. Because can I tell you this? Seasons die off, people die off, but you always gonna be with you. Mm. Let me say that again. People die off. People, loved ones, they go, they rest. Relationships end. Some of them last forever, but some of them end. Friendships may end, and this and that may end, but you have to be so strong and so secured in yourself that no matter who walks out, no matter who may leave, by choice or by just whatever you have to be so secure in yourself to say, I can do it, and be not so dependent on people to make you feel good. And that's easier said than done. I promise you, you're preaching and you're talking to the choir while you listen to me, while you're watching me. I know, but in the end, it's going to help you. It really is. 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 It was a sticky conversation, but it was a needed conversation. But I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We're really pushing here at Legacy Builders Podcast, and I feel like we're on our way to something special and to something. Oh, next week conversation will be real good. So family, I'm about to get out of here, but make sure you are listening. Please share, and subscribe and like and just follow us at Legacy Builders Podcast. We're going up in a major way. And if you need anything, creative, if you need anything like buttons, obituaries, this and that, shirts made, um, you can contact our sponsor, our first sponsor. Come on. Yeah. Our first sponsor, Michaela Wilson, aka Creativity by Kayla. She's one of our amazing sponsor. And if you want to sponsor our Legacy Builders podcast, just DM me if you want us to promote your shirts, your business, whatever. Just contact me, DM me, text me, and we will get it. I'll give you the form. It's easy form, and you know, we'll talk. But I believe that if you get with us now, while we're in this stage of foundation, I believe when we grow up, when we blow up, and when we do where we know where we go, where we know we're going, I'm gonna be glad. So sponsor, connect with us if you have any small business or businesses, anything. Connect with us, and if it aligns to our vision and to our purpose, we will make sure it is out and about. All right, family, I love you. Let me go. I will see you next week at 6 o'clock on Sunday here at Legacy Builders Podcast.